And shows like Sex and the City and...
Yes,
you know.
and I think it's a very limited view of young people trying to develop a well-rounded and balanced view of themselves when this notion of sex and empowerment is how you are perceived to be popular and liked, and you know, the ramifications are huge, and there are a lot of psychologists, psychiatrists backing this up now, saying yes, there are impacts. We have research here in Australia. The American Psychological Association have recently reported the impacts of the sexualization of kids, and we need more research too. But there's enough there for people to be acting now, you know, really pulling in the reins and saying we need to stop this. And there's international precedents too in Scandinavia, in Quebec, where all direct advertising to children under 12 and 13 is totally banned. Now, I would like to see research here on how that's working, how we can affect something like that here, because adults need to start taking responsibility for what our children are exposed to.
But where do they complain? You know, I mean, we've all had issues before with things that we've seen on television, but I don't think a lot of people actually know where to go to complain.
Well, who listens? Does anyone listen?
Yes, well, our system is failing us at the moment, and that's why I've started the campaign to start looking at what changes can be made, and to look at the economic costs of all of this to the country, not only the social and emotional costs to kids, but we really need to address it. It really has come to a point where action needs to be taken.
But even at home, Michael, even at home, children must be awfully confused by this. They must be, as you said, there'd be the private kid who's just wondering what's all this about. I mean, how does... and they're not likely to approach their parents with this subject because it's a very difficult subject to talk about. I mean, parents need to be able to recognise this going on, don't they? It's
a really hard one. Parents, we know, don't do all that well in the notion of sexual education to their kids, whether they're teens or younger kids. It is the big, grey, flaky area. And from my perspective, it's if you do that sort of sexuality education well, you'll do everything well as parents, because it's about communicating with your kids, and it's about having those processes in place about how you do yak with your kids about a whole range of issues. And I guess that does, you know, what do you do in the meantime? And I think it's actually make sure you have the TV in one room, not in bedroom, so that you're available as a parent. It is actually being a little bit of a censor and helping your kids process some knowledge, and also being available for kids to come and talk to you. Often it's a two-way thing, the communication aspect, and I'm not afraid to actually challenge the kids as well and mess with their minds a little bit and say, what do you think about that? And
well, I was thinking, you know, because what you were saying, it was almost contradictory in that teaching your kids about sex then gives them more confidence to not necessarily go down that path of being indoctrinated with the sexual message that we see in advertising.
What we do know is that the more kids know about real sexuality, the less likely they are to practice sex. So real sex education doesn't actually encourage... Yes, that doesn't, exactly. It doesn't actually encourage sexuality or sexual behaviour. It actually decreases it, and that's been across the board. So... But throwing sexual images at kids isn't education. It's actually just imagery, and it's actually...
ambush marketing.
It's normalised ambush marketing.
And can I say, I think it's really important here to say that I'm not a prude, and a lot of people say out there, we haven't wanted to say anything because we think people think we're a prude or a wowser or old-fashioned.
Good for you for saying that, Julie, because I mean, I can understand that you would be open to that question, wouldn't you?
Yes, of course, and I'm very frank talking about sexuality with my kids. I have no problem, and often I read the advertiser's response to complaints into the Advertising Standards Board. The advertisers say, well, you know, if parents have a problem talking about sexuality with their children, that's not our fault, you know, and that is so wrong and off the mark, because that's not what it's about.
Was there a particular instance that inspired you to start up Kids Friendly Kids?
Yes, there was, and my kids are now 12 and 9, and about 6 or 7 years ago they were listening to some music in the back family room. It was going over and over and over, and I went out and had a listen, and it was something like, ooh, I am so sexy, soft and smooth, and the kids were playing it over and over, and I said, where on earth did you get that from? And my daughter handed me the Barbie Pool Party CD, and I looked at, there's a little innocent girl on the front cover with a Barbie doll, and I thought, you know, someone somewhere has decided to put that song on a little girl's CD. And I guess because I'm a performer, I'm a very keen observer of what's around me, and I started to, from that point, I started to really look and see what else is going on?
Yeah.
You know, and by the way, we haven't even touched on the internet. The internet is another whole part of this whole story.
Sure, sure.
And, you know...
And also radio, you know,
Yes.
and television, you know.
But I just want to say that young girls are now starting to sexualise themselves. You know, you just want to have a look at what some of the pictures are that girls are posting of themselves on the internet, on MySpace, on MSN. It's prolific, and the generic pout, you know, this pouting, and they often take photos of themselves with the cleavage and the pout, and there's almost 99% of girls will post pictures of themselves like that.
Because that's what they think looks fantastic.
Yes, they don't really understand what message it's giving.
We're out of time, but I want to get to this internet-based protest, I guess, of yours.
Yes, I call for all parents, grandparents, everyone knows young kids somehow, and the need to really look after them. We call for people to come and register their name onto our website so that they become a part of a group of people who are voicing their concern, and to read the information on the website. We would love people to do that.
Well done, good job.
Thank
Good on you
you
for taking up the cause.
Yes,
And thank you too, Michael.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
thanks,
Nice to see you.
And we'll have more of us after this.